restored the school allocations that we had cut in version 2. We did add additional budget for transportation. As we look at some of the rules of CARES and ESSERS, the strings have become ropes, and the restrictions on how we can spend it are becoming more difficult to work our way through. CARES money, if you buy something, say curriculum, you can only pay for a licensing for up through December. And if it was a 1-year license, then general fund has to cover the balance of it. Or like where we bought curriculum that had a 3 to 5 year amount, you can only pay for up through December. So the same thing is transportation. If we need to increase transportation and we try to pay for it from CARES, which is a valid, under the latest guidance, that's still valid thing that we can pay for. You can only do that in through December. So if we want to continue the same model as whatever that is that's developed for September, we would need to pay that transportation cost from general fund, or possibly we can figure out whether we can pay for it out of ESSERS. We have not got that far of a great understanding of ESSERS yet. But so we have increased transportation's budget to allow us to have some budget for that for next year based on those assumptions. As I'm going to move down here in our document, try not to go too fast. So we are basing this on a funded count of, in the right-hand box here, 16,261.2 as a funded count. We do continue to benefit as a declining enrollment district from the 5-year averaging. And you can see here that when you use a 5-year average, it's 15,646. A 4-year average is 15,400 and on down. So we continued that 5-year averaging really helps us as we're a declining district. And then this is preschool and a couple other items that get added back in that are not averaged. So in last year, our funding average count was 16,631.3. So you see that we do have a reduction going on in our total average funded count. I was going to go to the athletic page, which take me just a second to get down there. I'm sure that moves a little fast on the screen, but oops. Oh, went too far. Pardon me. Got to scrolling too fast for myself.
You're at page 12, Mr. Horner.
I'm working on it. I'm
okay.
Trying to get back to it. I'm sorry about that. Athletic fund, we are bringing in an estimated $446,000 as a beginning fund balance as a carryover from this year with the savings that we were able to do. As we look at the ending fund for next year is $28,000, including $6,000 from gymnastics, which is kind of a subgroup that works out of our budget. So you could either use 22,000 or 6,000. So that's going from 446 to 22,000. That has increased expense for transportation and also decreased revenue based on what transpired this year and the best estimates of the group of what we can collect for next year and corporate sponsorships and things. So that does put them very tight, and we will definitely have to monitor that as we go. One of the other things that in our grant funds, if you remember what I believe it's the last meeting, we accepted the CARES money and the ESSERS money into our grants. As we continue to learn more about the guidance and everything, we may need to do a supplemental budget next summer and move some of those funds over into our general fund as we work to spend them. That will, it's an approved way to do business because we can modify our budget up through an amended budget in January. So we will monitor that as we continue to get more guidance. We think that especially the CARES funds, it may be easier to use them in the general fund. We are continually trying to figure out how do we do the trainings or staff compensation out of the CARES funds, and all of the districts are struggling to understand the rules and how do we work our way through that. So that is a piece that we are continuing to work on. On the bond redemption fund, we have collected enough taxes to make our June payment and our December payment for next year, which I know we had concerns previously about whether we were going to have enough collected for the December payment. We do have enough collected to make the December payments for both the old bonds and the new bonds. So we feel we're doing well there. I want to share the pie graph with you, but I'm not sure whether there's questions about this document first, or would you like me to share the pie graph of how the pieces are shared, or ask questions? I open for
as a question. Dr. Ray?
Yes. Did you say that at 2021 we would have in reserve $10,086,3400?
That is the ending fund budgeted.
Budget for 2021?
The $10,176,000. No, $10,086,034. Yes.
Okay. And also, first of all, thank you again for your work, Mr. Horn. I appreciate it. Can you tell what role the BEST grants will play in all of this? You may have already addressed it in some of the documents or plan to address it.
So the BEST grants will be dealt with in the capital construction, and those come in, and what we will do is take the amount that was budgeted in the bond for those two schools for repairs, and then we will need to add some of the funds that we have, the premium funds that Ken Lane talked about. That's one of the places we're going to propose that we use those, because that's a great investment of those funds, so that we have to make our matching funds. So we have a plan that we can meet our matching. The 10.64 million bonds that we did not issue is the main part of that, but with the tariffs and things, the cost of those projects was a little bit higher than we anticipated. So we need another couple $1 million as we work through it, which we have in those premium funds. So we're able then to convert repair and maintenance into brand new buildings, which is pretty exciting for the community. But that all happens in the bond fund.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you again for your hard work.
Great. Any other questions right now, or I'll show the pie graph. So does that change, or do I have to go back? Did that show the pie graph or not?
Yes, we could see the pie graph. You
All
might
right,
want to
now
make it a little bit larger, but we can see it.
we can do that. All right, as we look at our famous Pac-Man pie graph, so you'll see salaries are 60.4% and fringe benefits are 20% for an 80.4%. And as we've talked about before, parts of our purchase services are also staff, like special ed people and things that we can't find that we have to contract out. So we are that 80 to 85% of our budget is still staff. We are very people oriented business. So I just try to continue to show this each year, so for each budget, so that you can see that we're maintaining in those similar fashions. So I'm open for any other questions that you have. I hope that you will approve a budget and the assorted resolutions here later in the meeting.
Dr. Wright, do you have any other questions? Judge Mays?
No, thank you.
Mr. Farrell?
Thank you, President Voss. Thank you, Mr. Horner, for your update. I keep hearing comments around my house about all the sticky notes and note cards that I've been writing as I go through this budget. So I know you've put a lot of work into it, because it's I've been putting a lot of work into just looking at it. So I do have a couple quick questions. Going through the general fund, I see pretty much decreases across the board in expenditures under our expenditure items, with the exception of transportation, which you addressed, which I was going to ask a little bit about, because I've been looking at the CARES and ESSER requirements there, and knowing that that might be a challenge in the coming year. So thank you for already addressing that one. I noticed a small increase central services wise, which doesn't account for a whole much in the grand scheme of things. The other one that had an increase though was other supports, the 2900s. Can you tell me a little bit about what's included in that category?
Just let me get there so we can talk about it. Slow this down so I don't go too fast past it. The other support services, is that where you're at?
Yes. Other support. Yeah, the 2900s.
In the 1980s, there was agreements made with staff that if they retired, the district would cover some life insurance for the people that retired under these different programs. We have the benefit here, the water must be good. We have people that are living to be high 90s and even some over 100 that we are still paying premiums on. And obviously, when you know about life insurance, the older you are, the higher the rates are. So our rates under the fringe benefit line continues to go up to continue to honor what was provided by contract in the past. Also, the salaries contains the PEA representative, and I think it's some buyouts of people that retire and stuff are in that salary line item. So, but it's primarily the increase of the cost of the life insurance that's there. We've tried to figure out ways that we can buy out that contract or change what's going on to modify this, but so far we haven't come up with a great plan.
Yeah, I remember that conversation and I didn't know where that lived in the budget. So now I do. So I appreciate the answer to that question. Based on everything that I've looked at, the cuts are pretty consistent across the categories of expenditures, with instruction being the lowest. So it's hard to work with not a lot of money, but I thank you for what you've done to try to make sure this didn't go on the direct service to the students. I know it's challenging. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Clementi?
Thank you, and thanks, Mr. Farrell, for your comments. Mr. Horner, this is the first year that I remember there being so many unknowns as we go into this budget year. And we're required statute to have a budget in place by June 30th. The governor tried to help a lot of things, but he didn't change the dates for us. And so all these unknowns make me a little nervous. I'm hoping to hear that we can monitor this budget pretty closely as a board over the next at least 6 or 9 months, and make adjustments as needed as we see things, as we get answers, I guess, for some of those unknowns. Am I frozen?
I don't.
Not at this moment.
Okay, those are my comments. I appreciate the iterations of this budget that you've already gone through as numbers. There's so many. So these two work through as some of that all falls out, probably in the fall, with the number of students, all those things.
We will continue to monitor it for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Horner, for all of your work.
Okay.
Moving on then, we have 11.0, the consent agenda. Are there any consent agenda items anyone would like removed to be voted on separately? And I move that we approve consent agenda items 2 through 34.
Second.
I'll call for the vote, please.
Ms. Clementi,
Aye.
Mr. Farrell,
Aye.
Judge Mays,
Aye.
Mr. Voss,
Aye.
Dr. Wright.
Aye.
Next up, we have 12.0 action items. Superintendent Macaluso.
Thank you, President Voss. So at this time, you have several resolutions, primarily around the budget. And so the first resolution is the resolution approving the salary schedule for fiscal year 2021.
So first up, we have the resolution approving salary schedule for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. And I will move that we approve and adopt the resolution approving salary schedules for fiscal year 2020 through 2021 as presented in today's board materials, and that we dispense of the reading of the resolution verbatim.
Second.
I'll call for the vote, please.
Mrs. Patron, are you on the line?
Ms. Clementi, Ms. Clementi,
Aye.
Mr. Farrell,
Aye.
Judge Mays,
Aye.
Mr. Voss,
Aye.
Dr. Wright.
Aye.
Next up, we have the resolution authorizing the use of a portion of beginning fund balance for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. And I will move that we adopt and approve the resolution authorizing the use of a portion of beginning fund balance for fiscal year 2020 through 2021 as presented in today's board materials, and that we dispense of the reading of the resolution verbatim.
Second.
I'll call for the vote, please.
Ms. Clementi,
Aye.
Mr. Farrell,
Aye.
Judge Mays,
Aye.
Mr. Voss,
Aye.
Dr. Wright.
Aye.
Next up, we have the resolution authorizing interfund borrowing for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. So I will move that we adopt and approve the resolution authorizing interfund borrowing for fiscal year 2020 through 2021 as presented in today's board materials, and that we dispense of the reading of the resolution verbatim.
Second.
Second.
I'll call for the vote, please.
Ms. Clementi,
Aye.
Mr. Farrell,
Aye.
Judge Mays,
Aye.
Mr. Voss,
Aye.
Dr. Wright.
Aye.
Next up, we have the student fees resolution for the fiscal year 2020 through 2021 school year. So I will move that we approve and adopt the student fee resolution and fee schedule as presented in today's board materials, and we dispense of the reading of the resolution verbatim.
Second.
Call for the vote, please.
Ms. Clementi,
Aye.
Mr. Farrell,
Aye.
Judge Mays,
Aye.
Mr. Voss,
Aye.
Dr. Wright.
Aye.
Next up, we have the adoption of the fiscal year 2020 through 2021 proposed budget. I move that we approve and adopt the fiscal year 2020 through 2021 proposed budget as presented in today's board materials.
Second.
I'll call for the vote, please.
Ms. Clementi,
Aye.
Mr. Farrell,
Aye.
Judge Mays,
Aye.
Mr. Voss,
Aye.
Dr. Wright.
Aye.
Next up, we have the appropriations resolution for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. I move that we approve and adopt the appropriations resolution for 2020-2021 fiscal year as presented in today's board materials, and that we dispense of the reading of the resolution verbatim.
Second.
I'll call for the vote, please.
Ms. Clementi,
Aye.
Mr. Farrell,
Aye.
Judge Mays,
Aye.
Mr. Voss,
Aye.
Dr. Wright.
Aye.
We'll move on then to 13.0, the discussion recommendations for agenda. Is there any discussion or recommendations?
President Voss, I know that the board usually does not have meetings in July. However, my team has started the work groups for the restart plan for the following school year in anticipation of the opening of next school year. And so I would ask that the board consider holding a date at the end of July. We can work that date out, but my team would like an opportunity to present to the board what that restart plan would entail and look like. So I would ask this board to consider a meeting at the end of July.
Thank you, Superintendent Nicholson. Ms. Clementi?
This is not a request for anything on the agenda, but I'd like to know from Mr. Bump and from the board what actions and what I guess expenditures might be made between now and the meeting in July in order to further our support of ballot initiative 271, which is the Fair Tax Colorado. We did pass a resolution that in support of that. It is one of the only ways that there will be additional monies funneled into the general fund and into K-12 for next year and the years following that. But if we can't get the signatures and we can't get it on the ballot, then it won't do anybody any good. So since we have signed and agreed to support this initiative, what can we do to further that cause, and what legal ramifications might there be?
So, Mr. Voss, members of the board, and Mrs. Macaluso, of course, as you know, the resolution that passed tonight did authorize the board to expend money to provide a factual summary. Those factual summaries are controlled by statute and have to include arguments for and against. So we could consider the possibility of doing a resolution, something like that. The board has already passed the resolution of advocacy, which was what you did tonight. That can be published in the manner that we typically would of other board action on the district's website. So we could do that through Mr. Sprouse. As far as the authority, the board has designated the authority, and the superintendent has up to $50,000 worth of authority, which would, wouldn't come close to doing something like that. But that would, I think, be sufficient to authorize that to take place.
One follow-up question. The governor has allowed or made some, I guess it was an executive order, that would allow people to do what they're calling a single signature. And there's a form that people can download, sign, have it witnessed by someone else, and can be sent in. And that signature then will count. Could we post that form and those instructions on the website? So it'd be an easy place for people to find a form to sign.
I'll have to, I guess, defer advice on that because I haven't seen that particular executive order or the form itself. The restrictions of the Fair Campaign Practices Act are just that. They're pretty strict. So we would take a look at that, and to the extent we could, we will sure try. Otherwise, we want to err on the side of being conservative there.
Certainly. And so to that end, if we can put a form like that on our website, that'd be terrific. And if we can't, I do have those forms, and my email address is easily available on the website. Anyone who might want to do that could easily contact me, and I'll supply either a petition or a form. Thank you.
Mr. Farrell?
Related to that, Ms. Clementi, what is the deadline for petitioning? Do you know that off the top of your head?
I believe that the committee wants the petitions by, I think it's for the 20th of July, so that they can see where they are and still have perhaps a week for any defaults, because of course we need 2,000 signatures from every state Senate district. That's another, I don't know how many more.
Thank you. I'm also carrying a petition, so people can get a hold of me too if they need to sign. I'd be happy to drive it to their house or however they would feel comfortable doing it.
Okay, any other discussion or recommendations? And we'll move on to point 14.0 announcements, and I don't believe we have any other announcements other than upcoming board meetings. So there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.